when you go through on a spiritual awakening, you start to see how the ego plays a role in one's life. And you then start to see, looking at other people who is still living purely from the ego, because it makes so much sense to you. Once you've gone through it, you go, oh, yes, I can see it. But we still have an ego and we still use it and we still get offended by things. And the ego's still trying to find a way to feel good. But it's so much more clear when you can watch other people and see that they're just purely living from the ego. And a good way, there's easy ways to see if someone is just living via the ego, because they'll turn absolutely everything about themselves. So, as an example, if you're having a conversation with somebody, maybe you're trying to get to know them, and I will do this a lot if I'm just meeting somebody. I'll throw them certain kinds of questions to see how they react, because the way in which people react back to you gives you a lot of clues about the type of person that they are. If I said something very, very private, right, I want to see how they're going to react. So if I said something like, I was sexually assaulted as a child, and I've said something quite vulnerable to them. If they react in a way of, oh, wow, that must have been horrible for you at the time, like, how did you cope with that? They're telling you they heard what you said and they are validating what you went through, and they've got empathy. So they didn't make it about themselves, they made it about you. Even if they said, oh, the same thing happened to me, I know how you feel. Again, they are validating what you've just said, giving an example that they also experienced something like that. And so they are still showing empathy and care for you. But if you say to somebody, I was sexually assaulted as a child, and they reply with, I would never do that to somebody, it makes you feel like they haven't validated what you've just said at all, and they haven't even really heard what you've just said. They just turned it back about me. It's all about me. Let's say I came up with, I was having a discussion with somebody and I said, oh, I went through a business deal a few years ago and I lost $200,000. If they respond with, oh, wow, that's a hell of a lot of money to lose, how did you get through it? Again, they've heard what you've said, they've listened, and they're validating that happened to you, and they're trying to understand how that affected you. Or if they said, look, I can't loan you any money, but I can help you in other ways. Could I help you find a job somewhere else? Could I help you promote your new business you've got or something like that? I can help you in some other ways. Again, that's showing empathy. I've heard what you've said. You've gone through an experience of losing money, and I would like to try and help you. Again, that's an empathy thing. But if you said to somebody, a few years ago, I lost $200,000 in a business deal that went wrong, and their reply is, well, that would never happen to me because I'm really careful with my money. You see, again, there's no validation of what happened to you. The instant thing was to turn it back onto themselves. Also, it can happen when if there's been an estrangement in a relationship where there's kids not speaking to a parent, and the parent will say, I have no idea why my kids aren't speaking to me. There's no validation there of what the kid has gone through. It's still about the parent. The parent's just making it about the parent, not trying to understand what issues they have, or listening to them if they want to speak up. An egoic person will turn everything back about themselves. Absolutely everything. They don't validate what anyone else has gone through. It's all about themselves. And you'll find if you go out and you're trying to have a conversation with them, it'll always come back to, this is happening to me, right? The conversation will always be, this is happening to me. And you might throw little bits in there about what's happening to you, but they don't hear it. They can't hear it. They'll turn that conversation back to themselves every single time. We do need our ego, but the ego's trying to find a way to feel good. So you know yourself, if you've gone through a situation where somebody hurt your feelings, you'll go over the story in your head to try to see, well, did I do something wrong, or was it all them doing something wrong, or could I have done something better, or depending on how you see it. But if you're full of ego, everything will be somebody else's fault. It won't be your fault. It'll all be about them, because you couldn't possibly do anything wrong, because the ego doesn't want to let you. And I know myself, things like this will trigger my ego, where if I do 30 predictions and they all come true, right? If I've over the years, if I've done 30 predictions and as I've seen them unfold, they come true, and then I'll do one prediction that didn't come true, or I got it wrong. If I got one wrong, somebody that comes along and says, well, you got that one wrong. They never, ever, ever focus on the 30 I got right. Never. I've never heard from them or anything like that. Oh, you got that right, you got that right, you got that. Oh, that one was wrong, but you got that right, you got that right. They just show up and tell me about the one that I got wrong. That triggers my ego, because my ego gets offended that you didn't take the time to say anything nice to the other 30 predictions that were right. You only took the time to focus on the one negative one. And I know that says so much about that other person, but that triggers the ego. That's what the ego is doing. The ego is looking for some way to feel nice, to feel good, because it doesn't like feeling. The ego does not like feeling like it's failed, or ashamed, or guilty, or, those feelings that are really, really hard to deal with. So, yeah, next time you're in a conversation with somebody, if you're trying to get to know somebody, even if you're forming a new friendship or trying to date somebody or working with some new staff, and you're just trying to figure out the type of person they are, just throw a few quote statements, about something that happened to you, and watch the response. If the response comes back with an empathy, that they heard you, that they validated you, you'll know that they are a very well balanced, rounded person that has a way to communicate well. And if they just turn it straight back to themselves and don't validate a word you just said, you will know that they are absolutely full of their own ego and importance, and probably not somebody that you're going to have a really good relationship with, because it's so hard to have a relationship with people that live purely from the ego, especially if you have been through a spiritual awakening, because you won't see anything in common that you have with them. It just won't. You'll just look at them and I can't have a relationship with somebody like that. So just try it. Say your statement. Say a statement that's quite personal to you, and watch how they react.